friends, welcome back to On Location Vancouver. I'm your host, Zara Durrani. The show is brought to you with the generous support of TELUS STORYHIVE. Currently, I'm here at the beautiful Bayside with stunning views of downtown right behind me. Today, joining me is Ivan Hughes, the Programming Director and Partnerships Manager for the Vancouver International Mountain Film Festival. Ivan is one of the driving forces behind this incredible lineup we see this year, from adventure films to deeply human stories from around the world. Let's go in and speak to Ivan. So thank you so much for joining us.
It's been fantastic. We're on, I think today is day 6 of 8. We've got 11 shows during those 8 days, and we've been at the Rio Theatre in Vancouver, at the Centennial Theatre up in North Vancouver, and at K-Meek out in West Vancouver. And every single night so far has been so amazing. It's so cool to see the adventure community coming out and supporting the filmmakers, many of whom are coming to the festival with their first films. So it's just the electricity's been fantastic. The energy's been fantastic. It's been a busy week, but it's been a really enjoyable week so far.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to be having a bigger festival come spring. How does that work?
So the Vancouver Mountain Film Festival, it's been around for 28 years. And so we do what we call the fall series in November of each year. And like I said, that's over 8 days. We do 11 shows in various locations. We head out to Squamish even and do a night over there. And
I'm sure there's a lot of fans. Because, you know, whenever I go to Squamish, I just see everyone. You can tell you're a climber, yes. The build, everything is very different.
Well, again, and a lot of the films we're getting at the festival are local films, and so they're from local or Squamish filmmakers too. So when we go to Squamish to put on the show there, we kind of cater it to that local audience. So any films that have been made by filmmakers that are based in Squamish, we make sure we show those films, and then a bunch of other short films, just sort of keep the energy up. But because there's a lot of local filmmakers, they get a lot of their local friends out too. So, you know, it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's exposing a lot of nature lovers and, of course, perhaps first timers to the festival. How would you describe the identity of the festival for anyone checking out the Vancouver International Mountain Film Festival for the first time this year?
It's an international mountain film festival, so that means we're getting films from around the world. When we say mountain film festival, we really mean mountain adventure. So that can be rock climbing, alpine climbing, base jumping, mountain biking, trail running, ski films, snowboard films, any of that kind of stuff.
Where would you say your love for the mountains and nature? And I mean, of course, like one could say, how could you not love being outdoors? But where would you say it came from?
Where would it come from? That's well, I was born overseas, but I was raised mostly in downtown Toronto. So like any kid living in downtown Toronto, all you want to do is get out of the city. And so for me, getting out of the city meant I wanted to go to the mountains, because that's as far away as you can get from the downtown urban environment. So I had always dreamed about going to the mountains. I spent a summer, took the train out when I was about 17 years old, hopped on a train and went out to Vancouver and spent the summer in Vancouver, fell in love with the city. I was doing a little bit of mountain biking and hiking at that point, but didn't really get into the extreme adventure sports. Started traveling a little further. Eventually went to Nepal, did that trek in '96, and then got involved in mountaineering and alpine climbing after that, and really fell in love with it. And that's when I took advantage of everything around here in Vancouver.
How would you say the festival has evolved over the past few decades?
Well, so it started back in 1997 as a small, I'm going to say 4 or 5 day event, and it's just grown from there. It started off being mostly your typical, what you would think of a mountain adventure films, like the adrenaline kind of stuff, the mountain bikes screaming down the trails, or guys doing, the long ski runs, that sort of thing. But what I hope that we've achieved in the recent programming is finding stories in the film. So you get all that adventure, but then you also find out a little bit more about the motivation of the athletes. You find about the, how their character changes through some of the adventures that they've taken part in. And because it's now become much more international, you're seeing these stories from around the world. So. We've, as I say, we've evolved from just a few days into, a very long festival. And we have a festival, as I mentioned, in November, and then we do it again in February, March, and it's a much bigger festival at that point. This year we're going from February 27th to March 11th or so it's almost 2 weeks long. I think we show about 70 films during that festival, have a lot of guest speakers coming in. And it's just, it gets better every year. It gets more exciting. And I think because the landscape's really changing with festivals, because everybody can watch films online these days. So we need to do something at the festival that is more engaging for the public. So what we try to do is bring those adventure athletes into the festival as well, so you can hear directly from them, not just what they're putting out in the films, but what their actual experiences were like. And so and
have interaction with them and Q&As completely.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about your role as the programming director, because I'm sure you're getting films from all over the world. What is your, and I'm sure it takes a lot of time and effort behind the scenes.
Yes.
Like now you get to enjoy, you're getting to see everything come together, but the behind the scenes, all the work that happens. So tell us a bit about the role as the programming director.
So my job essentially is to pick the films and pick the guest speakers and put together the programs for each of the evenings. So how does that come about? Well, I connect with a lot of my friends who are athletes and see where they are around the world at different times of the year and see if I can convince them to come in and do presentations. With the films, we have an open call for submissions that goes out, a couple of times during the year, and we get about 300-400 films that are submitted. Out of those films, we have a sort of a pre-screening committee of about 50 or 60 people that watch all the films and sort of give them a first look over and suggest whether they think they'd be a good fit for the festival or not. I watch every film as well, but we've got to narrow it down from, as I said, 300-400 films down to about the fall series. We had 40 films. So it's a tough process. There's a lot of films to watch, and it's a challenge trying to find the right mix of films for an evening too, because you don't want them all to be adrenaline. You don't want them all to be too serious. You want to find that correct flow for each night. So.
Were there any standouts for you this year that you'd like to share with us?
There's been a ton of standouts already.
Other than obviously the project with Jeremy that you worked on as well.
On the first night of the festival, on our opening night, there was 2 films that really stood out. They're all great films. They're all fantastic, but for certain reasons, certain films stuck in my brain right now. We had a film called Trango, which was about the first ski descent of Trango Tower by Christina Listenberger and Jim Morrison and another skier. I believe his name was Mike McNutt. First ski descent, of an incredible mountain, and dedicating that to the memory of another ski friend of theirs who perished in the mountains a while ago. So it was a very powerful film. And the cinematography was amazing, and the achievement was incredible. So that was just it just really stood out for me. But and that was a very high-end, well-produced film. And then we get films from brand new filmmakers. So we had these kids out from Calgary, their very, very first film about, get this, winter surfing on rivers outside of Calgary. Now try to wrap your brain around. Yeah, I don't see where the fun is. So the name of the film was called Winter Kooks.
Okay.
And they get in these wetsuits and they find a choke point in the river when the water is released.
The snow and ice.
In the snow, in -20, -30, I gather the water is only released in the winter.
You must have some insulated or heated bodysuits or wetsuits. I've heard of folks here who go to Tofino in December and January, and February, and I'm like, okay, that is certainly like next level, or even free diving in the wintertime. I find that very fascinating.
But these guys were great because they were first-time filmmakers, and you could just feel the energy oozing off of them as they were soaking in the experience of being out there and standing on a stage and presenting their film with 350 people in the audience watching them, and like you could feel their energy as they absorbed it from the crowd. It was just so cool to see.
I would love to hear how you balance between the adrenaline-driven adventure films with films about culture, community, and the environmental impact, because that's also massive when you're, you know, dealing with being out in the mountains.
Yeah, so we, in two ways, I'll say, because what we tend to do is we'll have films that are dedicated to like ski and snowboard, to mountain biking, to rock climbing, but then we'll also dedicate films to mountain culture and mountain environment. So we'll have nights that are, you know, dedicated to those specific subjects. But what I'm also finding is, because our audiences are becoming a little more educated, they want to hear about those kind of things, but within the adventure films as well. And so a lot of the filmmakers understand this, and so when they're going off to, you know, Patagonia to do a climb up, you know, a remote peak, you know, that's been done. Those kind of films, you know, oh, there's the mountain, we're going to go climb it, we're going to come back down. That kind of film's been done. So filmmakers these days are trying to get a little bit more into the culture of the area, the environment of the area, how environments are changing over time. A lot of people think adventurers are the ones who go to the extremes of the planet. And it's in the extremes that you see the changes first. So when you see the glaciers starting to retreat, it's the adventurers who are seeing those first, right? So it is a part of these adventure films now.
Has this happened that you perhaps had a film in the festival or watched a submission that inspired your own journey as a filmmaker, that you're like, okay, perhaps I need to go there in Africa, or film in the desert, or go to Antarctica?
There was a film that came to us this year called The Kingdom of Treasures. And it's about a fellow who goes exploring in Jordan and around Wadi Rum and Petra, and he's going looking for boulders to climb. And so he searches online on Google Maps and finds these hidden valleys with massive boulders, and then he just drives out there and wanders around the trails until he finds these boulders that he was looking at on Google Maps and seeing if they're actually climbable. But again, through that whole process of making that film, he's introducing us to the culture of Jordan, which was, I've never been there. I now want to go there. It looks incredible. So yeah, all the time. It's hard because now there's 1,000 more places I want to go travel, right? So
completely. I feel like that's one of the reasons why I was like, I can't wait for someone else, like a filmmaker or photographer, to do it for me. Little by little, I need to build my own little thing, and here we go. How do you find social media creators are influencing festival programming?
Well, so I've been doing the programming for a little while now, and I've got a sort of something in my mind as far as who people want to see. I've also got an 18-year-old son who lives on YouTube. And so he keeps going, Dad, how about this guy? Look what he's doing. I'm going, well, I haven't seen a film by him, but my son says, well, yeah, but he's got a massive following on YouTube and he's doing all these cool stuff. So why don't you get him to come to the festival? And so I'm going, well, you know, we want to get that next generation of audiences as well. You can't just, you know, stick with the crowd you've got. So yeah, we're definitely looking at YouTube content creators and seeing if they've got films, shorts, presentations that they can bring to the festival as well. And quite often, if they're creating content for YouTube, they've got content that they can put together into short films anyway. So
completely, or a short doc or anything like that.
And they're storytellers. So at the end of the day, we want storytellers.
100%. You've spoken about bringing film programming to remote communities like Haida Gwaii.
Yes.
Why is that so important to you?
Well, this was an initiative that we started this year. We got some funding from the BC Arts Council and from the Canada Council for the Arts. And we were tasked with, well, actually what we wanted to do was bring films to remote communities. But we didn't want to just sort of create a program, go into a community and show the films and then bounce back out. So what we did was we made the films from our tour available, and then mentored local curators in Haida Gwaii to curate their own festival, so that they could pick the films that they thought their audience would like. And it wasn't the films that I thought would resonate with them. I thought they'd want the adventure stuff, and here's what it's like to go to the Alti Mountains in Morocco, or all these far off places. No, they wanted films about kids in remote communities doing cool stuff, and it was like, okay, well, that makes sense. And it really, really resonated with them. So it was a great experience for the communities and for us. And so now what we're going to do next is we're bringing a filmmaker from Haida Gwaii to be part of our film jury. To see what goes on behind the scenes at the festival. But then our next phase is we want to go back to Haida Gwaii with filmmakers and put on adventure filmmaking workshops, so that they can then, when they bring the Vancouver films back next year, they can showcase one of their own filmmakers in that series of films. And I think that would be really empowering and just a great way to, help people find their voice, share their stories.
And share their own stories, give the camera to them. TELUS actually, so our show is produced with the support of TELUS STORYHIVE, and TELUS actually does this, sponsors this empowered filmmaker program where they're going into smaller communities and giving them the camera, giving them the GoPro, teaching the skills. Here you go, share your story. And it's healing, it's moving. I'd love to talk about also you as a filmmaker and your journey as a filmmaker. Have you always created nature, outdoor, adventure films, or has that been something that it came down the line?
Well, it's interesting because I started off back in 1997 sitting in the crowd at the Vancouver Mountain Film Festival watching the films on the screen. And I was just one of those kids, I was still growing up then, but I was sitting in the crowd there watching the films, and I loved it. And I was a climber. I went to Squamish every weekend, and I decided I was going to make a film. Well, my wife and I decided we were going to make a film, and so we found a story. Through a long process, made the film and submitted it to the Vancouver Mountain Film Festival. It got accepted. It won a couple of prizes. It played on the CBC, and it started my journey down.
Brilliant.
Filmmaking. Yeah, so
that's what can happen if you come check out the Vancouver International Mountain Film Festival. Get inspired,
tell your story. Find your story and tell it,
What advice would you give to emerging filmmakers out there?
Well, go find your story, find your voice, and do it. And even if you get rejected by the film festival, write them a letter, because this is what happens to me. Like, the hardest part of my job is we get all these films that are submitted, and we only get to select a few of them, and then the rest, I have to write that email to them and say, hey, listen, sorry, we didn't accept your film to the festival. Write the festival director and ask, is there anything I could do? Why did my film get that feedback? Get notes. I always send notes to filmmakers if they ask for them, what they could do to improve their film. And we've had kids, young filmmakers with their first films that have recut their films, resubmitted, and then they get into the festival. So my advice is, don't take rejection as a reason to stop. Take rejection as a reason to learn and to grow. And just keep going at it. Yeah, keep going at it.
Build that door, keep knocking, keep going through. I love that.
It's worth it.
Well, thank you all for watching and for tuning in. I'm your host, Zara Durrani. The show is produced with the generous support of TELUS STORYHIVE. And thank you so much, Ivan, for taking the time. I know you've been very, very busy with the festival and long days, long nights, but we're very excited to support Vancouver International Mountain Film Festival, and the dates for next year, they will find out on the website?
Yeah, on the website, But again, February 27th is start date.
Brilliant.
Yep.
Thank you again for joining us on Location Vancouver, brought to you with the generous support of TELUS STORYHIVE. I'm your host, Zara Durrani, and I can't wait to share more stories from Vancouver with you. See you soon. Thank you all for tuning in and watching On Location Vancouver. If you'd like to share your story with us and be a guest on the show, please scan the QR code and someone from our team will get in touch with you. We'll see you soon.